chilly. The first case of the coronavirus has been reported in Indiana. The patient was tested and placed in self-isolation after going to an Indianapolis hospital last night. Health officials say the man developed symptoms when he returned from a business trip to Boston on Wednesday. His symptoms are described as mild and not needing hospitalization. State health officials are asking for more federal resources to investigate the potential spread of the virus.
So we are going to need additional what we call epidemiologists to be able to go out and to investigate these cases and to follow up and trace contacts with this. We will need more masks for individuals that are isolating at home. We will need to be able to have the ability to follow them up and to do lab testing to confirm that they are now free of the virus before they can stop being under isolation.
Indiana has tested 12 people so far for the virus. This is the first case to test positive. The state is currently monitoring 35 people in self-isolation at their homes. In Kentucky, no cases of the coronavirus have been confirmed, but Senator Mitch McConnell says Kentucky is going to get at least $7 million to help fight the virus. The funding was signed into law by President Trump today for each state. The number of confirmed coronavirus cases globally has now topped 100,000 as infections outside of China continue to mount and many countries and cities struggle to get this under control. NBC's Richard Engel reports from London.
There are 100,000 cases now globally, but the vast majority of them are in 4 countries. China overwhelmingly, also Italy, South Korea, and Iran. In Iran, they've taken the extraordinary step of canceling all Friday prayers, and dozens of officials in Iran have tested positive for the virus. In Italy, they're advising people over the age of 75 to stay at home. Schools and universities nationwide have been closed for about 2 weeks. In South Korea, they've stopped church services. They are cleaning the public transport system. They are advising people to take precautions, and they are testing people, testing their temperature and trying to screen for the disease at remote checkpoints that you have to drive through. So this is a growing concern. It is a growing, potentially pandemic, according to health officials we have spoken to. And with each day, there are more and more cases. And as more testing is carried out, health officials we've spoken to believe more cases will continue to be discovered. Richard Engel, NBC News, London.
And we have a special section on the coronavirus on wave3.com. Now new at
Travelers insurance is booming because of the coronavirus. Now travelers booking flights, though, should be advised that standard insurance policies often do not cover flight cancellations and delays. But experts say that doesn't mean you should swear off the protection altogether. There are some plans worth investigating that can help travelers recoup at least some of the costs if they do encounter coronavirus in their travels. Starbucks said store closures in China due to the virus outbreak are likely to result in a 50% decline in same-store sales in China. Now, for the entire fiscal year, the shuttered stores will cut revenue between $400 to $430 million during the first quarter. China made about 10% of the Starbucks revenue last year. And welcoming a bundle.
Disinfectants and over-the-counter medicines aren't the only things flying off store shelves because of the coronavirus. Recent analysis shows online ammunition sales have surged as well. Ammo.com says it's seen a 68% increase in transactions comparing the first half and the second half of February. Sales also varied by state, with North Carolina and Georgia coming both nearly tripling their sales. Princess Cruises temporarily modifying its cancellation policy. People scheduled to sail now through May 31st can cancel and get 100% future cruise credit. The cruise line says it wants guests to have leeway when booking during the coronavirus outbreak. Right now, thousands of people are currently stranded on a cruise ship off the coast of California, and one person has died on that boat. After dysentery is still high in the country, but it's decreased for the third week in a row. This is according to the latest data from the CDC. So far, there have been at least 34 million illnesses this season. Over 350,000 people have had to be hospitalized. At least 20,000 have died, including 136 children. The culprit for the flu may be something unexpected. Your cell phone is a microcosm for germs. Just think of all the times you're just holding it in your hand. Some studies show it is 10 times dirtier than a toilet seat. Ugh. Cleaning your phone is important, but it can be risky. NBC's Liz McLaughlin tells us how to disinfect your phone without breaking it.
Wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands.
Simple advice you've probably been hearing more often.
Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth.
Even if you're following suit,
I haven't touched my face in weeks. In weeks.
those efforts may be short-sighted if clean hands come in contact with a grimy phone.
What we know about viruses and bacteria in general is that they do live on surfaces.
Some can survive for more than a week. But before you break out the bleach, most newer phones have screens that can be damaged by harsh chemicals. Instead, phone manufacturers suggest wiping it down with a damp cloth.
You could also try one of these inexpensive screen protectors. It covers your screen, so then you could use one of the heavy-duty cleaners without worrying about damage.
There are also portable phone cleaners, such as the Hand Swipe or the Phone Soap Shine.
It's really just a portable spray and cloth in one that you could just pop in your purse.
UV sanitizers like this one from Phone Soap promises to kill 99.9% of germs. It's probably a good idea to avoid touching your phone after contact with shared surfaces, such as handrails, ATMs, or airport security bins.
We really probably need to rethink using our phones in places like this and decontaminating them on a regular basis.
A push to disinfect dirty devices as the coronavirus outbreak continues to spread. Liz McLaughlin, NBC News.
Church and well, welcome to the 700 Club. The coronavirus now has over 100,000 cases around the world, and it continues to infect the financial markets.
Here in the United States, Maryland is the latest state to confirm cases inside its borders, and many other states are bracing to combat the virus as well. Mark Martin has the story.
Local, state, and federal government officials are working to contain the coronavirus as new cases are appearing from coast to coast. Off the coast of San Francisco, the Coast Guard dropped off testing kits to the Grand Princess cruise ship to screen potentially infected passengers and crew. 3,500 people are on board. Once the results come in, officials will determine where the ship can berth.
If we've been exposed, we've been exposed, and there's not much we can do about it.
In Washington, the state hardest hit, with at least 70 people infected and 11 confirmed dead. Some schools are sanitizing classrooms daily or closing to prevent the spread. And in New York, at least 1,000 people are under self-quarantine as more cases are being discovered through testing.
I'm perturbed that people get anxious every time the number goes up. The number has to go up if you continue to test.
At the White House, the president is expected to sign an $8.3 billion bill passed by Congress to tackle the outbreak. Vice President Mike Pence giving the governor of Washington an elbow bump and visiting a medical mask production facility in Minnesota promises the full resources of the federal government are being brought to bear to control the virus, but admits vulnerabilities.
We don't have enough tests today to meet what we anticipate will be the demand going forward.
And without enough testing kits, local communities are weighing how to respond. In Central Virginia, health officials are developing criteria for testing for the disease.
There may be people in our community who have mild symptoms, who don't meet those criteria, who we're not going to test, but may actually have the virus.
The virus also continues to infect the financial markets. The Dow plunged nearly 1,000 points Thursday and could go lower again today, responding to concerns of a global economic slowdown as the virus continues to spread worldwide. In Saudi Arabia, the Grand Mosque is closed for cleaning. And in Bethlehem, the Church of the Nativity, considered by many to be the birthplace of Jesus, is closed. CBN's Chris Mitchell explaining why.
Here in Israel, 17 Israelis have been diagnosed with the coronavirus. As a safeguard, the government has quarantined 70,000 people, and the Palestinian Authority has shut down the Church of the Nativity in Bethlehem after an infected tourist visited the site.
There is some good news. The number of cases in South Korea and China is dropping, raising hopes that the virus can be contained. Mark Martin, CBN News.
Well, our CBN health reporter Lori Johnson is with us now. And Lori, we're still learning about the mortality rate, but now we're hearing reports out of China that the virus has already mutated. How many mutations should we look forward to? How deadly is this disease?
Great questions, Gordon, and it just goes to show how this situation is constantly changing. And you're right, scientists in China have identified 2 strains now of COVID-19. One is called strain L, and the other one is called strain S. Strain L is much more virulent. It is much more deadly, and they say that this was what was so rampant right away in Wuhan, where so many people died. And we know now that the death rate there in China, particularly in the Hubei province, has really dropped off. And scientists are wondering, is that because the L strain is a little bit less and the S strain is now more prevalent? This all points to the fact that scientists need to study this even further, and those studies are going on as we speak.
Well, as the scientists are studying, people are getting infected, and so what are some steps that people can take? I found myself yesterday suddenly getting really hungry for kimchi. Or, what should people be doing in order to protect their health?
I love it. You're eating kimchi. That's right. Well, first of all, we know that the best thing we can do is not get the virus in the first place. And the ways to prevent doing that, the CDC says the best way to do that is to keep your hands clean and don't touch your face. We know that this is spread through droplets when people cough and sneeze. So that's we need to try to cough and sneeze into our arm or into a tissue. And sometimes those droplets can fall on hard surfaces that we touch. And then we have to make sure that to sanitize the things we touch all the times, like our phones and our doorknobs and so many things. The World Health Organization, Gordon, says that sometimes these droplets can stay on hard surfaces for hours, up to many days, depending on the temperature and the humidity. But they say don't worry too much about packages that are being sent from places where there are outbreaks, like China, because when certain objects are being moved around and exposed to different temperatures and humidities, the virus is not very likely to survive that transit. If you do happen to get sick, of course, please stay home. Don't infect others and get well if your symptoms require it. The symptoms we know are high fever, shortness of breath, and body aches, and a cough, because this is a respiratory virus after all.
Well, it sounds a lot like a cold or the flu. And with flu season, I hear people saying, well, when the summer comes, this virus is going to disappear. Is that the case? Is a higher air temperature going to kill it? Or is this something that will be with us through the summer? Is it going to reoccur next fall?
Mm-hmm. That's the big question. And scientists don't really know about COVID-19, but they can look at some of its kinfolk, its relatives, other coronaviruses, and we know that 4 other coronaviruses are associated with the common cold, which is seasonal. So scientists are hoping that maybe this, like the common cold, is seasonal, which means we may see it again next fall, but by that time, hopefully, we'll have a vaccine. And scientists are also hopeful that by the end of this summer, if this thing sticks around, we will probably have therapeutics, drugs, to help people get better from this, like antiviral medications, which are being tested right now on COVID-19 patients.
All right, Lori, thank you for being with us. And if you, like me, have more questions about the coronavirus, we have a fact sheet for you. We're going to be updating you with the latest news, and you can get your free copy. All you have to do is call us. We'll send it to you as an email attachment. If you don't have email, we'll even mail it to you. 1-800-700-7000. And if you're worried about your gut health, and your gut is actually one of the prime defenses against any kind of infection, we'll have a booklet for you as well on that, where you can protect your gut. You can build a better gut. Again, it's absolutely free. We want you to be healthy, and so all you have to do is call us. 1-800-700-7000. We'll send it to you right away. In other news, the unofficial vote count is over in Israel. The question is, can Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu form a new government? Ephraim Graham has that story from the CBN Newsroom. Ephraim?
Gordon, Netanyahu's Likud party won the most votes, but his conservative coalition is 3 seats short of a Knesset majority, and that has inspired new attempts to oust him from office. Chris Mitchell explains now from Jerusalem.
Although Likud supporters came out on top, the celebrations in the wee hours of Tuesday morning seem like a long time ago.
As much as these elections look right now, it's clear that Gantz and his bloc lost, but it is not clear that Netanyahu has a clear victory.
What we know after the third election is that Benjamin Netanyahu has the best chance to form a government. What isn't known is whether Israel's president, the courts, or the next Knesset will block Netanyahu's push to build a coalition. Since the election, Netanyahu's rivals are looking for ways to stop him from keeping his office.
The election results are slowly tallying up, and it is evident that Netanyahu does not have 61 seats to form a government. We will examine our options.
Blue and white leader Benny Gantz wants the next Knesset to pass a law barring an indicted prime minister from forming a government. Israel Beiteinu leader Avigdor Lieberman says he backs such a law. That means a majority of the Knesset, 62 members, support that law. That could effectively disqualify Netanyahu from forming the next government. Interior Ministry Aryeh Deri pointed out that the right won 500,000 more votes than the left. And he added, quote, "We will not allow election results to be changed by legislation." In addition to this legislation, there are several potential scenarios unfolding on Israel's political landscape. One would be Netanyahu having members of the Blue and White or Labor Party join a right-wing coalition.
The Labor Party, of all people, even though they lean left, they would like to have some say in an Israeli government, and especially if they're given a ministry that's important to them, like the finance ministry, they might consider it.
Another would be a left-wing coalition with the support of some Arab members of the Knesset. Finally, Israelis could go to the polls for a fourth election in 2020. The next few days and weeks will determine which one of these scenarios comes to pass. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Turning now to election news here in the United States, Elizabeth Warren is out of the Democratic presidential race, but when she dropped out Thursday, she did not endorse her fellow progressive Socialist Senator Bernie Sanders. Joe Biden quickly received endorsements from Pete Buttigieg, Amy Klobuchar, and Mike Bloomberg after they dropped out. Warren didn't rule out endorsing Sanders, and he could use it as Biden has moved into a clear lead over him in the polls. President Donald Trump visits disaster areas in Tennessee today, just days after powerful tornadoes whipped across the state, leaving a trail of devastation and killing 24 people. The first tornado began early Tuesday morning and created a 50-mile-wide trail of destruction well after midnight. In a preliminary survey, the National Weather Service says 4 tornadoes hit the state. CBN's Operation Blessing is on the scene, clearing debris and helping those in need. Gordon?
Operation Blessing is on the ground, and if you want to be a part of the relief effort, 4 tornadoes struck around Nashville. The devastation is truly horrible, and if you want to be a part of the relief effort, we have a special Operation Blessing Disaster Relief Fund. You can write us, CBN Center, Virginia Beach, Virginia 23463, or you can go to the phone right now, 1-800-700-7000, or you can go to cbn.com. Either way, do it now. Be part of this relief effort. And if you're near Nashville and you want to volunteer and be a part of the Operation Blessing cleanup crews, we have a special information line for volunteers, 1-800-730-2537, or you can go to ob.org if you want to volunteer to help those in need. Terry?
Well,
For centuries, Europe was the center of Christian civilization, and that's no longer the case. Most of Europe has abandoned the faith, but in an interesting twist, missionaries from Africa and Asia are now re-evangelizing Europe. Dale Herb brings us that story from Dublin and London.
This is not the dark continent any longer. This is the new dark continent. A majority of African nations today are Christian. A majority of Europeans today say they're either atheist or have no religion. But God is using believers from the mission fields of Africa, Asia, and Eastern Europe, just as early missionaries had prayed for.
In the early 1800s, when European missionaries were going to Africa, Asia, they spoke of a hopeful day in the future
Dr. Harvey Quiani, professor of African Christianity and theology at Liverpool Hope University in England, grew up in a Malawi village first evangelized by British missionary David Livingstone. He says what early missionaries had prayed for is something called the blessed reflex.
That there's going to be a reflex in the future when Christians from Africa, from Asia, would come back to strengthen British or European Christianity.
And today, dynamic Bible-believing immigrant churches can be found in virtually every European capital. After years of decline, church attendance in London is finally growing again. But it's not growing because of traditional churches. It's growing primarily because of African churches.
In London, on any given Sunday, over 60% of people who attend church are black Africans going to African Pentecostal churches.
Just 14% of London's population. They now account for over half of the city's church attendance. After Ireland turned away from the Catholic Church to secularism, there is now fresh fire, thanks to Christian immigrants known as the New Irish.
The Irish came to Africa many years ago and did so much. They didn't just bring a religion, they brought better life, schools, hospitals, and all of that.
Pastor Tunde Oke oversees the Nigerian-based Redeemed Christian Church of God in Ireland, which now has more than 100 churches.
They brought the seed to Africa, and the Africans are coming back here. And for us to come back to Ireland and see Ireland in the state that it's in, it encourages us to do a whole lot more.
The harvest has also returned from Eastern Europe. The two largest churches in Ireland today are both Romanian Pentecostal. Betania Church outside of Dublin is building a new $5.5 million facility on faith. When I talked to the pastors at the construction site, they admitted this has all been a wonderful surprise.
I think nobody came here as a missionary, you're right.
But God had a plan for the Romanians who came to Ireland to work.
Our kids, our generation has the potential, and this is our main purpose as a church, to give and prepare and equip and empower and send this young generation outside of the church.
God's plan, like a big picture, we can see only the small puzzle piece, but it's God's plan and God's way. So even now we make history, but we don't know that we're making history.
Pastor Sean Malarkey of St. Mark's in Dublin says there are now church plants all over Ireland because of the immigrants.
There are churches being planted in little rural towns that could never have been reached if it wasn't for the fact that God has brought in these people. We've been so blessed by the arrival of these new Irish.
And Quiani believes this new movement in Europe will redefine what it means to be a missionary in this century.
God has a sense of humor. Because now that things are getting a lot more secular, God is bringing the harvest back to people that brought Jesus to us.
Dale Hurd, CBN News, reporting from London and Dublin.
It's one of the amazing stories of Christianity today, how the center of Christianity is shifting to Latin America, to Asia, to Africa, and now whole new missionary movements are being birthed to bring the gospel back to Europe and to finish the Great Commission. It's a wonderful story. It's a wonderful story of how Christianity spread from just 12 people, 12 disciples 2,000 years ago, first to Asia Minor, then to Europe, the great dream and the Macedonian dream that the Apostle Paul had. It brought the gospel first to Europe's shores, how it went from Europe to the New World, from the New World to around the world, and now it's coming back again full circle. It's wonderful what God is doing. He's in the business of restoring all things.